Welcome back to the Crochet Credits. So it's my friends at yarnspirations.com. Knitting today, and we're doing the reverse sand stitch. So this is what this particular scarf is. It's using Red Heart Super Saver yarn, and it's a chunky Red Heart Super Saver chunk, it says. So it's a thicker yarn. You'll need an 8mm size US 11 knitting needles, and so that's what I'll be using on screen today. Now this yarn I believe is discontinued, so what I did is that I switched it out with Caron Chunky Cakes. One ball should give you a nice size scarf, as you see. This pattern is worked in an even number, so you just have to make sure how many loops are on your hook when you cast on is an even number, and then the rest of it will work out, and then it's a multiple of 4 rows in order to make it work. You can see that I check it off as I'm going, and this here is the sample of it. So it looks really cool once it's done, and you can see as it transitions in color, it's just really amazing. So I let the color change where it wanted to, and even though it looks like you may not see it that it changed over, it does, and it does a really good job. So without further ado, we're going to cast on and get started. So let's begin to cast on. If you suck at knitting, you're in the right group today. I'm not a new knitter, but I'm not great at it. So I will show you the best I can and teach it from a beginner's perspective, because your host is pretty much almost there. So you're going to start off with a slip knot. We have videos available for different kinds of techniques and stuff like slip knots. And you're going to grab your knitting needle and put it onto there. When you pull it for the first time, don't over tighten it. That's one of the biggest mistakes you can do within your knitting. And I'm going to show you a cast on that I prefer. There are many ways to cast on with the knitting needles. If you know a better way, or you like a better way, please do that as well. Okay, so we are going to go with this needle that I'm wiggling, and you're going to go into the loop that it's on that. So use your finger behind it to help stabilize it, because it's probably more stable than your personality. That might be my case. So you're going to go in there, so you're inside the loop, and we're going to put this into our yarn feeding hand, which will be right here. The way that I do it is that I take my man sausage pinky and I rotate it around my finger, and then I come up on the inside of my hand, and then I take my pointer finger and push back like this. Okay, so we'll show it again. Take that pinky and rotate once, and come in the front of your hand, and then take your pointer finger and go backward. You want it one more time? If you said no, tough. So just going in, rotate around, front of your hand, use your your pointer, and go backward. So now we're going to use this area right here, and if I need it to be tighter, I just kind of close my pinky and whatever finger that's called, and I'm just going to rotate around the back needle, and I'm just going to take that back needle and just pull it down and pull that wrapped one onto this needle. You're going to pull up a little bit, and you're going to put this needle inside this stitch. So you're just going to rotate and go on the underside, use your finger to help stabilize it, and just put it onto that needle, and slide down and remove this needle out. So now you just have 2 loops on there. So for this particular pattern, you need a total of 20 stitches. So there's 2 already done. So to do another one, going in, wrap the back one, and pull the needle down and flick it towards you, push up, and we need to transfer that back over to this needle right here. So just rotate and transfer. So this is a twist and transfer cast on, and then you just move it down. So I'll show you 2 more times. So in, rotate, flick down, pull up, twist, and shove it on. Okay, so one more time. So in, around the back, flick it forward, and transfer. Okay, so you're going to do that so that you can count 20 of these. I currently now have 5, and I'll be right back. When I have 20 done, just put me on pause and get your stitches cast on. If you're relatively new with knitting, what I just showed you is actually done pretty quickly, and just a matter of just keep on casting on. So now we're going to do rows number 1 through 4, and you just keep repeating that until the cows come home. So you should have 20 loops on your knitting needle. I happen to use circular because it's a lot easier, they don't bang on my desk. So what I have here is that the first stitch and the last stitch are not in the pattern. So the first and the last stitch are always going to just be a knit stitch, regardless of what's in between. You know, it's kind of like the space in between my ears, hollow. So what we have here. So what's going to happen is that I'm going to show you a technique, not on this row, but I'll show it to you in the next, where I'm going to show you how to keep the edges really nice and smooth, and we'll do it starting on the next row. So row number 1, you're just going to insert your needle in, and you are just going to knit your way across. So you just, to do a knit stitch, you just wrap the needle, you flick it forward, and then this time, instead of transferring it onto your needle, you're going to just slide it off. So there, you transferred it over. So to do the next one, again, just sticking it in, the needle is on the back side, wrap the back needle and flick it forward. You're going to notice that the tension will ease off once you get this row done. And you just keep moving down your row, just knitting like so. So this is the knit stitch. So I'm not a very fast knitter, but it's not about the speed. But once you get used to it, you can start doing other things like watching TV and maybe cooking dinner at the same time. Who knows? So just keep on knitting all yourself across for row number 1, and then I'll show you a little cheating technique in number 2. So I'm getting close to the other side. It's just a few seconds ago that I left you. I just keep moseying on. And I'm gonna go right and knit right to the very last one. And you'll notice that the material now in this hand is a lot more loose. It's not as tense as it was. And you knit right to the end, and so all stitches are transferred from this needle and now onto here. And now we're gonna move on to row number 2, and to do that, you're just gonna turn your work and reset your hands. Maybe possibly clean up your desk, and I'll be right back. Okay, row number 2. Now I told you that the first stitch and the last stitch are not really in part of this pattern. They're always gonna be kind of like on its own, and it's gonna be the middle stitches in between there that is referring to the pattern. So the first stitch is always gonna be a knit stitch, but watch what I'm about to do. This is not in the pattern, this is experience. So maybe I do actually know something. So I always had really crappy edges, and the way to get rid of that is that you never knit the first one. So you stick your needle in and you just slide it off. This is a slip stitch knitwise, and we're gonna put this back on there. So we slip it, the first one, so we do nothing with it, and then you start the pattern as you know it. So row number 2 is that it says that we're going to knit 1, purl 1. So we're going to knit the first one, and then we transfer, and the next one is going to be a purl. To do a purl, we have to get the yarn from the back in between the 2 needles, which I call the goalpost. Come in between the 2 needles first, and then stick this needle right here into the hole, but on the front side, so that this needle is on the front of this other one. We're going to take this yarn and rotate it around that front needle, and we're just going to slide it down and push it backward and catch it, and then slide the needle up and pull off. And so the next one is going to be a knit stitch. So this yarn has to be on the back first, so you have to go between the goalposts first, and then you're going to knit. If you don't move the yarn first before you do the action, you end up with an extra loop on the hook that looks like sin. So the next one is going to be a purl. So we move the yarn in front between the goalpost, bring this needle in front, wrap it, push it back, and slide off. And the next one's a knit, so between the goalposts and knit. And you're going to do this all the way till you get close to the other side. So the next one's a purl, and the next one's a knit. So I'm going to keep on going till I get close to the other side, and then I'll meet you there to show you how this row finishes. And once you can get moving on this thing, it's pretty quick. And because it's chunky yarn too, it goes really quick as well. So I'm keeping within the pattern, and the second last stitch, if your multiple is right, so we started with the knit one, purl one, knit one, purl one, the second last one should be a purl. Okay, and you're just keeping in the sequence. And therefore the last stitch, because it's not counted as anything, it's like the air between my ears, you're just gonna knit that last one. So the first and the last stitch is always gonna be knit, regardless of what's in between. And so now you've just completed row number 2. Let's turn our work, reset our hands, and begin number 3. Row number 3. If it's an odd number, it's always just a knit stitch across. And remember what I showed you before, we're not gonna knit the first one, we're just gonna pretend we're going to, and we're gonna go in and we just slide it off. And that was a slip stitch knitwise. And then you're going to start with your next one and knit as normal. And you'll notice that you'll have perfect edging when you do it this way. So you just knit all the way across right to the very last stitch. So every other stitch, you don't have to worry. Now, when you're looking at rows number 1 or 3, you're always looking at the right side of the work. The project, when you see the model, is the right side is what faces us when somebody's looking at you. And this is the right side, just in case. And so you'll notice on the right side of the work is that everything will appear really nicely. The other side still looks good, but the pattern is not as obvious on the back side. So let's continue to knit across. So coming all the way across, and we knit right to the very last one. And when we turn our work, and we're going to do row number 4, which will complete one of the sequence. Look how much is already done, and that's because it's chunky yarn. Let's begin number 4. When we start number 4, always just going in, pretending you're going to knit it, and just come off. The next one will be a purl. So before you continue, you have to move the yarn in between the goalposts through to the front side, and then you purl the next. And then what does that mean that the next one's gonna happen? The next one has to be a knit stitch. So move the yarn back and knit. So you're changing the position of your purls and knits to create the foundation of the look. So we're going to continue to do that all the way till you get to the other side. Just alternating between the 2 stitches, and I'll meet you close to the very end of the row in a moment. I'm coming close to the very last one. The second last one, in this case, it should be a knit stitch, and the last one is also a knit. Okay, so the sequence is slightly different on the end, and that's just a matter of keeping it great. So when you turn it around, you're going to see that the work is actually starting to develop on this side, which is the right side. So what we have now is that we have video chapters, and you'll see that in the video description and pinned comment. And I'm going to put and demonstrate rows number 1 through 4 for you without the chatter to give you the basic instruction, and then you can just use those video chapters to skip ahead to be able to do the instruction and keep on moving. So let's begin row number 1. So let's begin row number 1. You are going to slip stitch knitwise, so just pull it off, and then just knit all the way across for row number 1. So do that, and then turn your needles around, and we'll start row number 2 in a moment. Row number 2, slip stitch knitwise. And then you're going to start with your next one, and you're going to do a knit stitch, and then the next one is a purl, and you keep alternating between the two all the way down to the other side. I'll get close to the other side and show you how this is going to finish. So if your alternation is off, you're going to know it by the time you get over there. I'll see you at the end of the row. Coming up near to the end, the second last one in the alternating of this should be a purl. And then the last one is obviously going to be a knit stitch. Let's turn your work and let's do row number 3. Row number 3, slip stitch knitwise, and then just knit yourself all the way across, and I'll see you. And we'll start row number 4 together. So just get it done and change out your hands, and I'll be right back in a moment. Let's begin row number 4, slip stitch knitwise, and then the first one out has to be a purl. So we have to move the yarn in between the goalposts and purl the first one, and then alternate. So the next one's a knit, and the next one's a purl. So just keep moving the yarn back and forth. So I'll see you at the end of the row in just a moment to make sure that we finish properly. I'm getting close to the very end of row number 4, and so the second last one should be a knit stitch, and then the very last stitch is a knit stitch. So you can go back in the video chapters in order to repeat rows number 1 through 4, and when you turn it around, you're looking at the good side of the work. When you're ready to finish this, you need to finish either a row number 2 or a row number 4, and then you can finish off so that you're looking at the right side of the work, and you're going to be able to clearly tell which is the right side and which is the other side of the work. So there we go, and I'm going to show you how to cast off or bind off in a moment. To finish off the work, the last row that you completed must be either row number 2 or row number 4, and then you're starting a fresh row. So it could either be row number 1 or 2, or 1 or 3. So in this case, I'm starting with row number 1. So we're going to bind off on the right side, and we're going to do it knitwise. So we're just going to take the first one, slide it up, and you might as well continue that so you have a nice good edge, and then you are going to knit the next one. It's a bit tricky if you're new to knitting, but you got to take this one and go up over top of this, leaving this one behind. So just take your time and just kind of slide it up and make sure the other one stays on the knitting needle. And this is called a bind off. Just provide a little bit of extra slack because it can be tight. And so you're going to knit the next one, and you're doing this all the way across. And then you take the new one here and going up and over. Just like that. And so you're finishing it off, and you're going to have a nice flat edge. So please do this all the way across, and I'll see you back here in just a moment. I'm on my last one, and I'm just going to knit, and then I'm just going to pick the last one up here and go up and over. Now this loop that is still on the knitting needle is considered live, so I'm just going to pull up on it a little bit so I have access to it, and I'm going to snip the yarn long enough so I can put it through a tapestry needle and put this through the loop so that this will not unravel itself. Now you're going to be able to tell which is the right side of the work. So this is the reverse sand stitch on this side, this is the back of the work. Still looks cool, but it's definitely different. You're going to take any loose yarn that you have, and you are going to apply it through a tapestry needle. And I want you to favor the back side of the project in order to hide this the best. So just coming into the back, so turn it over, and you see the back of the work, and just push it through to the stitch work on this side. It's best to go through plies, not just between strands, and the first time you pull, make sure that you do not change the shape of your scarf. So be taut and just give it a little bit of flexibility, okay? And then you're going to go back in the opposite direction through a different path. And it is really advantageous to be able to split the plies, not just go between strands. And you want to go back and forth the total of 3 times. And then you can safely cut that down. So any loose ends that you'll have, that's the best way to do it. And when you favor the back side, it doesn't do anything to the right side of the work, which changes the stitch. We hope you've enjoyed, and please leave any comments and give us a like if you have time. We'll see you. Bye-bye.